Greetings all, and welcome to the 24th episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. Today, we are going to be looking at a specific game from the Pokemon franchise that has been both embraced and hated by different sectors of the Pokemon fan community, but is arguably the biggest reason in recent times behind the incredible popularity of the franchise. Today, we are indeed going to be taking a look at Pokemon GO and its history, function, evolution, problems, and what lays in store for it in the future.
As a very brief summary, the entire concept of Pokemon GO itself can be traced back to 2014 from the minds of Satoru Iwata and Tsunekazu Ishihara as an April Fool's Day collaboration with Google known as the Google Maps Pokemon Challenge. Ishihara was already a fan of the game Ingress developed by Niantic and thought that it could be a perfect model for the Pokemon series to take a step into the real world. He went on in 2015 to deliver a speech on the concept of Pokemon GO in honor of Iwata, who had passed away just a few months prior to the speech, and after beta test in 2016 in a few areas in the world, the game was officially released not too long after, on July 6, 2016. I still find it interesting that the entire idea of it was little more than a joke at first, but it seems quite clear that this joke was seen to have incredible potential, and looking back, I can see why. Augmented reality is a lovely mix of the real and fictional world of your choosing, so using Pokemon for that seems like an easy shoo-in with little problems.
It did help, of course, that Niantic already had something to use as a blueprint for Pokemon GO, which would be the aforementioned game Ingress.
Without getting too much into the nitty-gritty details of it all, Ingress tells the story of two factions fighting for control and morality over the discovery of something called exotic matter in the game, which is associated with some sort of cosmic phenomenon or aliens. Players are split into those that wish to use the discovery to further human development, and those that work to keep it contained and out of the hands of the public. And the game is unique because it actually relies on GPS coordinates and maps to create an AR field that players can then engage in. I won't delve too deep into how the game as a whole works, that's up to those that are interested in it, but suffice to say Pokemon GO essentially used the game's data present in Ingress, at least initially, as a skeleton from which all of the used Pokemon assets were then laid down upon. Ingress isn't exactly my sort of game, to be honest, but I do respect it for effectively turning the entire world into one giant gaming board, helping to show that the use of AR in games can make a tremendous impact that can be felt even across different game worlds. Now, I was there when Pokemon GO first dropped, and I can tell you from there, over the first year at the very least, I had some difficulty bumping into anyone that hadn't heard of it or played the game, and was absolutely everywhere.
I was a kid at the height of the Pokemon craze when it first came to the United States, and I can tell you such a time was a fantastic time to be a Pokemon fan. It was truly absolutely everywhere, from the games to toys, books, the anime, and so much more.
And I remember that fondly, even to this day, as before GO, the craze had definitely died down over time, and while it still attracted all sorts of people to the franchise, it wasn't such a global note like it was at the very beginning of it all. However, when Pokemon GO came out, it was truly a return to form in regards to popularity, but now more than ever before. A large part of it came down to the timing, as many of the people that played the games back then as children, like myself, were adults now and didn't always have the time to get a game console to sink their time into playing. But because Pokemon GO is an app game, it can be used with smartphones of almost any type, something that adults are sure to have these days. More importantly though, it was a simpler game than the main series titles that not only made it attractive to casual players, but something that could be played by both adults and their children, a way of bringing families together, and indeed it did do that.
It was a phenomenon that honestly left me speechless, as I really didn't know where this was going or if it was going to go very far, and I'm happy to say that those initial doubts were very wrong.
However, with this initial praise, the game was quite a bit different from what exists today and what it was like at its launch point in terms of what it could handle and do, and this did cause some early problems. First of all, I clearly remember that Niantic had not expected the sudden and immense flow of traffic the game had brought to their prepared game servers, overloading the servers many times over, and those were days where the polite error screen warning of these issues was a sadly common feature. Even then though, it really didn't deter many players, and while the original console Pokédex was all that was available at launch, I was still a lot of Pokemon to just throw into the wild all at once. It made itself a real adventure in those regards, but at the same time it was a bit frustrating as it really wasn't a way to easily find what you were looking for. This was especially an issue with the tracker function they had initially to help trainers find nearby Pokemon, because it broke not too long after launch, leading to a debacle for a few months that sadly killed a lot of its initial momentum until the modern identification system was ultimately implemented. The biggest source of problems, however, came into play with legal issues, with people trespassing on properties that were clearly not their own without permission, people getting into car accidents from driving while playing the game, and even murders committed during the use of the game. Now, those issues with trespassing and driving have been fixed with warnings and alterations to gameplay to keep them from happening, but suffice to say the game did get its fair share of flack in the press, whether or not it really deserved it all, though now such incidents are very rarely if ever heard much in news headlines at the very least.
With that introduction out of the way, let's now take a good look at the game itself and see what it has to offer and how it compares to the main series games in my opinion. A lot of this I won't spend a lot of time explaining unless I feel it's completely necessary to understand my thoughts, so keep that in mind as a forewarning.
Much as one might expect, the main aspect of the game is to go out into the world and find and capture wild Pokemon using a number of different ball types and in different manners. At launch, things were rather simple in that regard, but over time, the variety of methods for doing so have evolved, with Pokestops acting as places where one can also gather supplies and research tasks that can reward items or Pokemon encounters when completed. In addition to this, Pokemon can also be found by equipping incubators to eggs gathered from Pokestops and gyms, more on the latter later, and hatching them by walking a given amount, depending on the egg type, and this can often lead to obtaining Pokemon that are otherwise not available in the wild. The concept of collecting Pokemon has always been at the core of the franchise, and from its debut up to the present, this has remained the main staple of Pokémon GO. As I also mentioned, there are numerous items in the game, like berries, capture devices, incense for attracting Pokemon as you walk, and many other things. The items themselves serve to amplify the game experience and give strategy to those that play it, with items that increase the amount of starters you get from captures, which is used to help power up Pokemon alongside candy you get for capturing them, or lucky eggs that increase the amount of experience you get from various activities, which are needed to level up your own character to get better item rewards and increase the sorts of items you can get access to from Pokestops and gyms, among other benefits. The Pokemon themselves have been heavily simplified in that their IVs only range from 0 to 15 in value and are limited to HP, attack, and defense, with the in-game stats for the latter two being taken from the highest offensive and defensive stat of a Pokemon respectively, which admittedly really kinda puts the shaft to Pokemon that are normally valued for their speed, as it doesn't play any sort of role in the game at all. In addition, leveling up Pokemon is limited to whatever level you as a player are at prior to level 40. Only their HP increases with leveling up, and they have access to a fast attack that is used to charge up energy for a much stronger charged attack, with the damage and charge attributes being different for each move. There is also a present capacity to access a second charge move, though at a fairly costly sum of Stardust and candy to make it happen. Sometimes Pokemon are rolled out in large groups at once, or one family at a time, and nowadays, it often happens through special events that occur on a constant basis with their own set of tasks, research, and themes that might help to introduce new Pokemon or shinies and keep players on their toes as much as possible.
Now, as shocking as it may be to hear, when Pokémon GO was first launched, it is true that battles as we know them were not implemented yet.
Specifically, Pokemon could battle in gyms against the other Pokemon of players or even raid bosses, but that was about it. Player versus player battles took some time to be implemented, but with them today, it adds a new level of experience and effort beyond simply catching and collecting as many Pokemon as possible. In these sorts of battles, the way the moves work or are powered can change slightly to introduce things like status changes to make it easier or harder for opponents to be beaten, and a trainer can take a charge attack without damage if they use a shield, but only 2 are allowed per battle, helping to introduce strategy involving knowing when it's the best time to hold on to shields or use them. GO currently features several battle leagues that are separated by a Pokemon CP value, which is essentially a reflection of the combined power of their 3 stats, with points being weighted more in favor of attack than the other 2 stats. It doesn't quite have the complexity you'd otherwise expect in a fight, as abilities and held items are not currently implemented in the games, but from my experience, it still has all the strategy and expertise present for trainers to really have to think carefully on how they fight and go out to find the strongest Pokemon they can to work with. In addition to this, there is also Team Go Rocket, which consists of grunts and admins that you can battle to capture shadow Pokemon that can then be purified in order to return them to a normal state. Giovanni even comes around every once in a while for special events with legendary Pokemon at his side, so it can be worthwhile to hunt him down to acquire whatever valuable beast he has at his beck and call. Also, on a slight side note, I would like to mention that Team Go Rocket's Giovanni, and I mean this sincerely, is the only man I have ever seen who still looks scary and intimidating as all heck while wearing a tracksuit. So, there's something for you.
Outside of this, the main place where Pokemon do battle are in gyms, which are attached to important landmarks or locations in a real-world area.
This is truly where the teams come into play, as when you begin the game, after some time, you can choose to be affiliated with one of 3 factions. Team Mystic, which is blue, Team Valor, which is red, and Team Instinct, which is yellow, and is the team that yours truly belongs to. Players of these teams can put in 1 Pokemon at a time to help hold down the fort and switch the color of a gym in their favor, with Pokemon from a maximum of 6 players being allowed at any one time, allowing the gym to give out more items and help earn currency in-game. When these first came out as part of Pokemon GO, I remember there being serious turf wars between the different factions, and there are still some today, which I can sort of understand. You've got pride in your team and want to represent it, I get that. But even so, it is just a game, so I don't see a lot of logic in making a big deal out of something like this in real life. What they've become to be known for these days, however, are raids. In essence, raid bosses, as the name suggests, are Pokemon that are used as a sort of boss for players to fight against that have all the normal stats of a Pokemon, but have their HP magnified immensely to make it harder to defeat them. But if defeated, they reward players with experience, Stardust, and items, and they are then given the chance to actually capture the boss afterwards with a number of Premier Balls. And they aren't very strong, but it's all you're given to try and catch them. While there were originally 5 tiers of raid boss difficulty, this has now been reduced to 3 for the sake of simplicity. When they appear initially, it's as an egg of some sort, either colored red, yellow, or a silver-purple in order of increasing difficulty, and will eventually hatch to reveal the boss after some amount of time. Tier 5 eggs, the lattermost kind, typically hold legendary Pokemon and are normally the only way to get access to said Pokemon, but because they have a ton of HP to them, they are impossible to complete on one's own in almost all cases. So players or groups of up to 20 members will have to band together to take them down in the allotted time allowed to finish a raid fight. Honestly, this and trading are the heart and soul of players working together in this game, and while trading is about the same as one might expect for all of this, raid battles are what really tend to bring massive groups together, and I am all for it in honesty, even if capturing legendary Pokemon can be a real pain to do.
And on that note, trading has its own system in the game that is a bit different from the norm.
In this game, you can add people to a list to become friends and can send gifts or battle with them to slowly level up your connections, which helps in reducing the cost of trading in the game. And yes, there are limits to trading, such as only being able to trade special Pokemon like something you don't have registered in your decks yet, or shiny Pokemon once a day under normal conditions. You can even get the chance at a lucky trade, which affects the IVs of traded Pokemon and the cost of Stardust needed to level them up. When 2 Pokemon are traded normally, their IV stats are randomized in the process, so it's likely that you might just get rubbish. But with a lucky trade, what can happen either at a low random rate or a surefire trade under the right conditions, with older Pokemon tending to have a higher chance of activating the phenomena, their IVs are guaranteed to at least be a 12 out of 15 in all stats, so you've got a much better chance of getting something good out of them. The Stardust cost for powering them up is also halved in the process, so it can be a lot easier to level them up and get them to the highest level possible. Honestly, I know that this is the way it is in order to encourage others to go out and grind for the strongest Pokemon they can, rather than just hope to get one from a trade, but I also think that it can make the game more tedious than it needs to be. However, since you usually have to earn it all yourself anyways, from a veteran's perspective, that's no different from trying to breed a really good Pokemon for battles, so I'm not gonna make a huge ruckus over it.
Alright, now, Pokemon GO is a mobile game, so yes, there are microtransactions involved, but you don't have to necessarily buy into them, pun not intended, in order to make the most of the game.
The currency of the game is Pokecoins, and while you can pay varying sums of real money for large batches of them, you can also earn in-game currency through gyms. Yeah, there is indeed more to them than just turf wars and raids. Originally, if you were able to keep a Pokemon in the gym for a given amount of time, you could earn 10 coins a day every time they were knocked out after 24 hours per gym. But nowadays, you can instead earn up to 50 coins a day at a flat rate, depending on how long a Pokemon is able to remain in the gym. While this means that you might get less coins if you've got a lot of Pokemon in many gyms, for me the newer system is actually much preferred. I don't live near a lot of gyms, so getting a flat 50 coins per day maximum is a better deal for me. Still, it really does depend on your location in the world, so I get why there are sometimes still issues with it. Regardless, while this means that it can take a while to make enough money to purchase item bundles in the game, that is thankfully all it's really for. Item bundles and the like. Sure, there are things like egg incubators that can help you hatch more than one egg at a time, since you're only given one infinite egg incubator that can be used infinite times, unlike others that can only hatch 3 eggs before breaking, but ultimately these items are only aid, and do not impact the way the game is played in any other major fashion.
Furthermore, it should be noted that the way the game handles shiny Pokemon is, again, a bit different than you might actually expect.
First of all, unlike the main series games, shiny Pokemon were not available in any way at the start of the game, and for the most part, they have had a staggered release, meaning that only certain shiny Pokemon have been put into the game so far, either one at a time with families, or in groups during special events. The rate for finding a shiny Pokemon in Pokémon GO is much harder than that in the main series games, but because you can't just spam encounters, as a captured Pokemon would typically only have a new Pokemon spawn in its place every 30 minutes or so, this altered encounter rate is understandable. Moreover, rare Pokemon tend to have even higher shiny rates to compensate for the increased rarity in the wild. There are also special events once a month known as Community Days, where a specific Pokemon and its shiny will be featured, either new or rare prior to the event, and the shiny rate is boosted to an immense degree to give people the chance to capture not just shiny Pokemon from that family, but also evolve them to gain access to unique attacks that they normally cannot get if caught and evolved fully any other day. Legendary Pokemon can even get entire events revolving around the release of their shiny variation, and it's these sorts of events that really put the grind of raid bosses to the max, as I can tell you that it can get quite crazy with it all. This is one part of the game that I know a lot of people have serious issues with, saying that it makes it too easy to get shiny Pokemon, and I can affirm that Community Days can get a bit extreme. But I think this is important to be as it is, as it gives most a serious incentive to go out there and try and get them. The odds are normally low enough that you're not guaranteed to get something for an entire event, but still high enough that the hunt is worth it to the casual player, an appeal I will dive deeper into soon enough with it all. I still remember and have the very first shiny I ever got, which was a shiny Magikarp all the way back in 2017, the very first shiny ever introduced into the game. And as a shiny hunter, I can confirm that, while the grind is painful in a lot of cases, it certainly does get me out and about, so I can't really complain all that much about it. In addition to this, there are also special costumed Pokemon that have unique outfit on them that makes them distinct from the normal variant. They normally can't evolve, and they're just there for show and bragging rights, shiny variations of them included, and while I think this idea is cute, it's also been heavily abused, so I think it would do some good to try and lay off of them, or at the very least, not worry too much about them if you're just playing the game for fun. Plus, unlike normal Pokemon, which can be transferred with some limitations to the main series games, the costume variants can't even be traded outside of GO. So, yeah, not something to get worked up about as far as I'm concerned.
Now that the major core aspects of GO have been examined, I'd like to talk more about how the game has affected the mainline series and players in general over the course of its development and execution.
The first and most noteworthy thing that it did is something that had honestly never been done before. It gave us new Pokemon that are otherwise unseen in the main series games, and that would be the mythical Meltan family. When Meltan first debuted, it wasn't even an official appearance, as Dittos started showing up everywhere in mass numbers in the shape of Meltan, but they changed back as soon as they were caught, leaving some to believe that they may have just been a weird placeholder for a new Pokemon. But to everyone's shock, we soon learned that it was not a placeholder, but in fact a real true Pokemon, Meltan. And not only that, but we later learned that Meltan was the first and currently the only mythical Pokemon with the capacity to evolve, giving us Melmetal. Getting Meltan is not an easy task, but it is connected to the Let's Go games on the Nintendo Switch, which means you have to have both game sets in order to really farm Meltan for the ludicrous number of candies needed to evolve them. But it is worth it, as Melmetal is actually a very powerful Pokemon and can really hold its own both in Go and the main series games. With that said, there was a lot of uproar over its creation because Meltan can only ever evolve currently in Pokemon Go. So if you don't have the game, getting both it and its evolution can be a pain. However, I think that this choice to make Pokemon specifically to be used for Go was a brilliant way to tie the game to the main series titles. Plus, if you do have someone that is dedicated and can get access to them, it's not an impossible feat to get one for your collection. The shiny versions though, yeah, they are a pain, since they only are available during special events, but regardless, these two made a huge splash in the world of Pokemon with their inception and execution, even if there were some troughs along with the peaks those waves created.
Pokemon Go has also managed to spark a debate that, for reasons that still honestly irk me, tends to place casual gamers and veteran players against each other.
It goes without saying that Pokemon Go is indeed simplified for the purpose of making it easier for people to pick up and play without really having to invest the time needed to understand and play through the main series games. And I can understand that some feel that this brings in a lot of people that could claim to know Pokemon well, despite never having actually played the main series games. I personally have never run into anyone of such obnoxious mindset, but I know they do exist, and I can understand that veteran players might be irked that a bunch of newbies have been coming in, claiming they know things when they really only know them to the scope that Pokemon Go allows. That, and things like easy shinies, raid bosses, and the like, all have them up in arms because it's not something that can be fully enjoyed just on one's own, or something of the like. And, okay, yeah, that's not entirely wrong, but I think this debate is flawed on the side of veterans, because they don't seem to always understand that the entire point of Go was to bring in casual gamers. Pokemon has always been a profitable franchise, but Pokemon Go is what has allowed it to become the most profitable media franchise of all time, and there is no denying that. It has reached many more people that are otherwise unable to fully take part in the franchise through the console games, and in doing so, it has spread the influence and power of the franchise to the farthest reaches of the globe. It has made fans out of people that may have not even known what Pokemon was before, and it has helped form new communities, build connections between generations within families, giving children and grandparents something they can bond over as an example, and as a whole, has shown that anyone can be a part of the Pokemon world in any way they see fit. I understand why veterans might feel a bit insulted, but this isn't meant to be for them alone, and never was meant for that. So they really need to get their act together and accept the good it has done for the franchise.
There is something to be said here as well, I think, with the case in the most recent times in writing this script out and making this video, as the entire point of Go has always been to get players outside into the world around them and to make it as they see fit. But that does not mean that the game can't pivot when needed, and that is especially proven to be the case with the recent COVID-19 pandemic.
A game that needs people to go outside and play it to get the most of it certainly can prove to be an issue to deal with in this sort of situation, and if things had remained the same as they were, it is quite likely that Go might have suffered immensely from it all. Instead, however, Niantic did the right thing and made fundamental changes to the game that seem to have now, thanks to fan pressure, become permanent changes to the game that have made it infinitely more accessible than it ever was before. Just a few of the changes that have been made since the pandemic and lockdown began include: the distance needed to be close enough to interact with stops and gyms has been doubled, remote raid passes were created in order to allow people to contact and get invited to raids even if they are far away, community day hours were doubled, incense is now much more effective while walking, gifts are guaranteed to be given out by stops if you have room for more, which helps immensely in leveling up friendship levels between human players, and many more aside from this. I have never seen a game like this adapt to a global crisis like this before, though to be honest, that's probably because it's a bit of a first for the video game industry as a whole, but it's a joy to see the Niantic, in response to their fans, their pocketbooks, or probably both to be honest, have made changes to make the game even more accessible than ever before, making it one of the few things that I believe has honestly improved in the industry in response to the pandemic.
Furthermore, as I noted in talking on the debate between casual and veteran players in the franchise, there is no face lost in saying that Go has become a global phenomenon since it first debuted. And while the craze of it might not be anywhere near as great as it was at launch, it has slowly been gaining ground again and today is about as popular as it ever was, even if it's without media fanfare.
Go has made the franchise so profitable that its value in sales have eclipsed that of even Mario, and that guy has been a juggernaut for games for an extremely long period of time, since the inception and creation of the original Famicom system from Nintendo. Everywhere you go in the world, there's some trace or even thriving heart of the community to be found, and while the game itself might not always be fair to people depending on the location, I'll get back to that in a minute, it goes without saying that it has changed the franchise for the better to me, and it's never going back. The whole point of the game is to appeal to both a wide audience and to those that represent the core of a franchise, and find the right balance between those two things. Admittedly though, it is rarely ever an easy feat. However, I think that Pokémon GO has managed to do just that, and that we should respect it for that. This is especially the case because, just as with the main series, it is a game that is constantly changing and evolving, either to fan support, backlash, or, as already mentioned, in response to global disasters that otherwise could end the game as we know it. And it's been made clear by Niantic's own head that the game is only going to keep evolving and becoming stronger and more inclusive for players, working to transform the world around us into a place where anyone can just go outside, take out their phone, and immerse themselves in this world entirely, right in our own backyards, so to speak.
Before we wrap up here, I would like to take a few moments to just say a few things in defense of people that might not be happy with my praise for the game, because even as a dedicated player, I must admit that I do have some gripes with the game as a whole that I think should be noted.
One of the biggest drawbacks of the game is that it is mostly built on the skeleton of Ingress, and while that might not initially seem to be a problem, it means that in a lot of rural places, such as where I live, Pokestops and gyms are few and far between. This was reflected in recent times by introducing a system where high-level players can submit forms to try and get a monument or some sort of location turned into a stop or gym, but it doesn't help those of lower levels that just want to play the game more to get to those higher levels, which is understandable given that high-level players also often get to test new features before they are fully implemented. Second, I think that the system could benefit from incorporating speed into it somehow as a stat or a feature, as the way Go's CP values are calculated means that Pokemon that focus on speed tend to be really underpowered, and those that are just good in one defensive or offensive stat are a lot better than they normally would be, and vice versa, with those with split stats taking a serious drop in usefulness as a result. Thirdly and lastly, as far as major gripes go, while I don't think that something like super training from the main series games should be introduced, as well raid passes typically do require in-game currency in order to obtain, and in turn real money if you really need to get them, and having super training to just beef up Pokemon even if their stats are really low would likely kill the momentum of raid pass sales and really turn the game into a pay-to-win fiasco, I do think that some improvements can be made to the trading system to at least give a better basement level value for just randomly traded Pokemon. Even if it just meant something as low as a minimum of 5 for the IV values in each stat, it would still help to ensure there was at least a greater incentive to get players to trade for better Pokemon, to at least put the odds in their favor of getting a better higher IV trade out of any transaction.
Pokémon GO is something that I never knew I needed in my life before it came out, but as I saw how many people were really getting into it all, and the changes it was creating just in my local community, I felt no regrets in playing it, and still mostly don't feel too many, jumping headfirst into it all to see what it would do to the larger fandom. And I am happy to say that this game has made a much more extroverted person out of me, and I do not take that lightly.
Family history aside, I've never normally been the most outgoing of people on my own, but this game allowed me to meet people in my community I never knew before, and make friends and relationships that never would have been possible without it. It's changed my life and helped me to get through tough times, and especially the uncertain future we are all faced right now in light of current global affairs. This is a principal foundation piece for why I, much like the leader of Niantic, believe that Pokemon AR is the future, and not VR. He has made it clear that Niantic is going to continue to bring Pokemon GO into higher and higher states of immersion, and I honestly cannot wait to see what that may ultimately entail. Plans for the game's future are unknown, but there is a constantly building sense of momentum with it all, and while the game still has its missteps, too many types of damn Pikachu with hats included, at its heart it is something that I feel will work to pioneer greater forms of immersion and community building in time. Is the game perfect? Adaptable for all players? Offers a way to engage in it completely without having to sometimes go beyond just what you can earn and inject a bit of cash to make it easier? Well, no, it really isn't, at least not in the purest sense. But it is a game that has spread Pokemon to nearly all corners of the globe and to all classes and types of people, and to be perfectly honest, even as a veteran of the entire franchise from Generation 1, I am happy to see these changes, and as an adult now, I look forward to seeing my favorite franchise bring more and more under the fold, and show them what makes this franchise so special in the hearts of so many, myself more than included.
I hope that you enjoyed this analysis, and with that, I will see you all later on the next, and very special episode of the V.T.P. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always a pleasure to help teach others about the world of Pokemon and the many facets of it that exist in both the world we call home and the world they call home. If you'd like, please leave a comment and subscribe and ring the bell to this channel to get regular updates on content and anything else that might be going on. You can find me and my written work on DeviantArt under the name Untitled, and be informed of information and content uploads on my Twitter page and my Patreon page. Donations are always welcome. Always remember, the world of Pokemon is a vast and varied place, and there's no telling what secrets might be hiding just around the corner. So keep watch, stay vigilant, and always prepare for the unexpected. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of the day.